How to bypass and remove ECU immobilizer chip on Ford Focus. If your Focus suddenly refuses to start, there's a 70% chance in most cases that it has nothing to do with the battery or starter, and everything to do with the immobilizer chip inside your car's ECU. Your Ford Focus used to start without any issues, but now it cranks and won't fire. Or maybe it doesn't crank at all. You've already checked the battery, the fuses, and maybe even tried swapping relays, but still nothing. At this point, many owners start to suspect the immobilizer system. And here's the thing, if you take this issue to a dealer, you might be quoted hundreds of dollars just for diagnostics. But the good news is, in many cases, the problem is something you can fix yourself at home. In this video, I'll show you exactly how the Ford Focus immobilizer works, why it fails, and how you can remove, repair, or replace the immobilizer chip inside the ECU and reset the system, all without draining your wallet. How the immobilizer system works. Let's start with a quick explanation of how the system works. Your car's immobilizer is designed to prevent the engine from starting unless the correct key is detected. When you insert the key, it sends a signal to the car's computer, which checks that signal against what's stored in the immobilizer chip. If they match, the car starts. If not, nothing happens. It's a security feature that's helped reduce car theft, but when something goes wrong in the system, like a faulty chip, a dead key transponder, or corrupted data, it becomes a major headache. In the Ford Focus, the immobilizer system is integrated into the ECU itself. This means if there's a fault with the chip inside the ECU, the car won't recognize the key, and it won't allow the engine to start. On most Focus models, the immobilizer is built into the ECU, but earlier years also have a PATS transceiver ring located around the ignition barrel. This video focuses on the ECU integrated system. Common signs of immobilizer failure. Some of the most common symptoms of immobilizer failure include the engine cranking but not starting, the immobilizer warning light flashing on the dashboard, or a message that says "key not detected." You may also notice that there's no power going to the fuel pump or ignition system. In some cases, the car might start for just a second before shutting off. If you're seeing one or more of these issues and you've already ruled out basic problems like the battery or starter, then you're likely dealing with a faulty immobilizer chip. The good news is, if you're comfortable working with basic tools and electronics, you can fix this yourself by removing the ECU, replacing or reprogramming the chip, and resetting the immobilizer. Tools you'll need for the job. Now let's talk about what tools you'll need to get this job done. You're going to need a basic screwdriver and socket set to remove parts of the car. You'll need a soldering iron and some basic soldering skills to remove and install the chip from the ECU board. An anti-static wrist strap is a good idea to avoid damaging sensitive electronics. You'll also need a replacement EEPROM chip that matches the one inside your ECU, usually something like a 93C86 or 24C02. If you want to clone the chip data instead of reprogramming the whole system, you can also use an EEPROM programmer. And finally, to reset the system, you'll either need a diagnostic scanner that supports PATS functions or know the manual reset method that works on older Focus models. Removing the ECU and locating the chip. First, before you touch anything, make sure to disconnect your battery. Start by removing the negative terminal first, then the positive. This keeps everything safe while you're working. Next, locate the ECU in your Ford Focus. In most models, it's found under the hood on the passenger side near the firewall, here, or around the battery area, here. You might need to remove a few plastic covers or a mounting bracket to access it. Once you can see the ECU, unplug all the wiring harnesses. These usually have tabs or levers that you press or pull to release. After the wires are disconnected, unscrew the bolts holding the ECU in place and gently pull it out. Be careful not to drop or shake it. This is sensitive equipment. Replacing or repairing the immobilizer chip. With the ECU out, take it to a clean work area and open the casing using a small screwdriver. Inside, you'll see the circuit board. Look closely for a small 8-pin chip, usually labeled something like 93C86, 24C02, or 95080. This chip stores the immobilizer data. Before you remove it, take a photo so you remember the chip's exact position and orientation. Now heat up your soldering iron and carefully desolder each pin of the chip. Don't rush this step. Once all the pins are free, gently lift the chip off the board using tweezers. At this point, you can either install a new chip that's already programmed for your ECU, or use a chip programmer to clone the data from the old one and transfer it to a replacement. Reinstalling the ECU and reconnecting power. Once you have your new or repaired chip ready, install it in the same position as the old one. Make sure it's facing the same direction. Solder each pin neatly and securely. Don't let any solder bridges touch between pins. When the chip is installed, put the ECU case back together and screw it shut. Now it's time to reinstall the ECU in your car. Slide it back into its original place, reconnect all the plugs and tighten the bolts. After that, reconnect the battery, positive terminal first, then negative. At this point, the physical part of the job is done, but now you need to reset or reprogram the immobilizer system so it will recognize the key again. Once the reset is successful, the car exits security mode and the anti-theft warning light should stop flashing. Resetting the immobilizer system. Some people search for ways to turn off or completely delete the immobilizer, but that usually requires a full ECU remap and disables the car's factory anti-theft system. This video focuses on fixing and resetting the original PATS immobilizer so it works normally again. There are two main ways to reset the immobilizer on a Ford Focus. The first method is using a diagnostic scanner that supports ePATS functions. Plug the scanner into the OBD2 port, turn your key to the ON position without starting the engine, and navigate to the PATS or immobilizer section in the scanner's menu. Select the option to reset the system or program new keys. Follow the instructions carefully. You may be asked to enter a security access code, which you can find in the vehicle's service manual or through a locksmith. There may also be a 10-minute countdown while the system verifies the request. Once that's done, the scanner will ask you to program at least 2 keys to complete the process. Once finished, the car should recognize your keys and start normally. Manual reset method for older models. If you don't have a scanner or you're working on an older Focus, there's a manual method that sometimes works. Insert your key into the ignition and turn it to the on position. Leave it there for 30 to 60 minutes without turning it off or removing the key. During this time, the immobilizer light may blink or stay solid. After enough time has passed, the light should stop blinking or turn off. Turn the key off, then back on, and try starting the car. This method doesn't always work, but it's worth trying if you don't have the tools for programming. For keyless Focus models that use proximity fobs instead of a physical keyblade, the same reset steps still apply. Just make sure the fob is inside the vehicle during the programming reset process. Final testing. Now for the moment of truth. Start the car. If the light goes off and the engine starts, congratulations. You just saved yourself a big repair bill. If it still doesn't start, go back and check your work. Make sure the chip is soldered properly, the ECU is fully connected, and that the keys were correctly programmed. You can also scan the car for fault codes if needed. Sometimes a small mistake, like a bent pin or wrong chip orientation, can cause the system to fail again. Now, let's quickly go through some FAQs on this. 1. Can I install a used ECU from another Focus to bypass the immobilizer problem? Yes, but only if you also clone or program the immobilizer data from your original ECU. A used ECU on its own won't start the car. 2. Can I use a key from a different model year or trim? Only if the transponder chip inside the key is compatible and you reprogram it with a scan tool or manual PATS procedure. 3. If I disconnect the battery again in the future, will the immobilizer reset? No, battery disconnection does not reset the immobilizer. Once the chip is repaired or replaced and the system is reset, it will stay programmed.